Hello, Extratime.
They're important to the league not to get a high because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
Simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credited in the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, Season 12, Episode 8 this week. Coming to you a slight bit later than usual due to the fact of the international break, and in the meantime we have released 3 voice note podcasts. I do check them out after this episode. Coming up later on, we will chat to James Rodgers as we get the latest on Dundalk as they head into a crucial week in their season after a very poor start to the year. But first, let's check out the results in the SSE Electricity from last weekend. No Premier Division fixtures due to the international break, but there was First Division. We have Finn Harps 0, Kerry 0, Bray 3, Wexford 4, Athlone Town 3, Longford Town 3 in the derby, Cove Ramblers 1, UCD 2, and Treaty United 0, Cork City 0. And on Monday night there was a postponement fixture that was played, and it was Bray 1, Longford Town 1. With a bit of audio from last weekend, our reporter Rory Merriman was at the game where Wexford won 4-3 away in the Carlisle Grounds, and he chatted to both managers Ian Ryan and James Keddy. Let's have a listen.
Reporting from the sidelines of the Carlisle Ground last night in a First Division clash between Bray Wanderers and Wexford that finished 4-3 to the visitors, I caught up with Bray manager Ian Ryan after the game, where he came out on the losing end of the encounter.
No, be a long night. Manic game, terrible defending. Then we got ourselves back into the game again, and it looked like probably it was going to end in a draw, and then basics of defending we didn't do and give away a soft penalty, and then we lose again. The first and second goal for Wexford are the exact same goal. The penalty is the penalty, but there's a lack of real hunger, real fucking eyeballs out to defend, and it's a lack that we have in the team, and as coaches we work hard on that, and the players work hard on that, but when the lights come on the Friday we need to be seen. Listen, tonight we wanted to win. Obviously it was a big game back at home, but the games come thick and fast. We've no time to dwell on it. We take our lessons from it, make sure we come on Sunday morning with the bit between our teeth, and do that on Friday. And we've a lot of games coming. Friday Mondays, and as much as it's a kick up the arse tonight, football gives you an opportunity every time to get back on the horse, and we'll do that Sunday and we'll do that Monday. To me, that just shows the way the league is going to be. It's unpredictable. Wexford have won a couple, lost a couple, the same as ourselves. I don't know the scores tonight, but the only thing that will be consistent this year is that teams will take points off each other, and if we can go on a run now with our couple of games at home on our Friday Mondays, we'll shoot that table.
I also caught up with Wexford manager James Keddy after his side came out on top, claiming all 3 points against the Seagulls.
4-3 win tonight. How are you feeling?
Delighted. Obviously we gave away poor goals defensively, but as I said to our lads last week, football's all about winning, and we've come away from home and scored 4 goals, so there's a lot of positives.
Yeah. Dobbs and Rowe in particular, very impressive tonight. Going forward, how do you feel like the youth in the team is going to benefit you going forward in the league?
Yeah, well, it's going to take time. Pretty similar to last year, with a few new bodies in. Mikey settled in well, in fairness, and his experience is 28 years of age, but I thought we were really, really good going forward tonight, especially in the first half. Listen, we knew, we've done our homework on Brian. Defensively they're probably a little bit weak, the way they play very, very open, so we knew we'd get chances. We took our chances. Obviously there's other stuff defensively we have to look at, especially set plays and that, and Noji as well, probably a little bit unlucky by Mark, but 3 points, that's all that matters to me.
Excellent first half. Maybe you took the foot off the pedal in the second half a little bit.
Again, it goes back to a poor goal defensively. Goes over the man in the hole. I think Owen might have been a little bit better for it, and then Dobbsy's man that ends up scoring. But listen, I can't fault them going forward. Say, come to Bray, 3 points. It's very positive.
Third win of the season now. Do you think this will be the lifting spirit that you need for the rest of the season?
Listen, football's all about confidence. People forget how young my team is. It's very, very young. It's only it's a year and a half in the making, and it takes time. It takes probably 3 years to kind of get where you want to be in football, like especially when you're starting out. And but there's a lot more ambition in the club. I'm lucky that I work for good people. Tony Doyle and the whole board. John Godkin, director of football, all good people. So, the way the club's going at the moment, there's a lot to look forward to.
And lastly, do you think it was a penalty?
Well, I didn't see it. I'm going to give him Arsene Wenger. I didn't really see it. So, but execution from Thomas is very good, though. He's good record. He was going on. He was going. We just fancied him scoring. So, he's lucky that he's got the goal again. He's a good record against Bray.
It was also a busy weekend in the Women's All-Ireland Cup as match day 1 was played last weekend, starting with Group A, Peamount 2, Linfield Women 2, Bowes 4, Lisburn Ladies 0. In Group B, Cork City 2, Wexford 2, Cliftonville 1, Shelbourne 1. In Group C, DLR Waves 0, Crusader Strikers 1, Treaty United 1, Shamrock Rovers 1. And in Group D, Sligo Rovers 0, Galway United 2, Glentoran Women 2, Athlone Town Women 5. As mentioned at the start of the show, it was the international break over the last week, and Ireland unfortunately came to a 1-0 loss to Switzerland on Tuesday night after a positive performance last Saturday against Belgium, despite drawing the game 0-0. Our reporter Ronan McNamara was at the game, covering for Extratime.com, and spoke to Technical Director Brian Kerr, and this is what he had to say.
I was asked to help out for 2 matches, and that finished tonight. As far as I'm concerned, I'm finished tonight. I haven't been asked to do anything else. I've enjoyed that time. I don't know whether I want to do any more. As you know, I have commitments to the media, which I've broken over the last about version. And after ball, I've been very cooperative, I suppose, in allowing me the time out to do this. But I don't have any problem going back to do that again. I found this really, really interesting, intensive, demanding, and I don't know how important my contribution was to it. I mean, the initial question I asked John was, why do you think you need me? Can you not do it by yourself? I also said the same thing to Jonathan Hill, and having looked at him over the last few days and looked at the staff working, I don't think there's a great necessity for me. Now, they may have a slightly different opinion to that, but in my view, they are very competent young coaches with the experience of playing and some experience of management, not experience of the management in terms of selection and fine judgments and fine calls in relation to the balance of the team and so on. And experienced managers sometimes have that, but I've been really, really impressed with Glenn Whelan, Paddy McCarthy, Stephen Rice, John himself, and all the lads who've worked in Brennigan Martin has done magnificent work with the goalkeepers. A very impressive young coach, and Damien Doyle, Martin Doyle, Gerard Dunn, and all the analyst team. They've done great work, and they've worked very long hours every day. It's been intense. So I have no problem with if that's the end for me. I've enjoyed the time, and it's kind of maybe I've maybe shaken off a few things that were a bit of closure. I suppose to a degree. Well, the way I finished wasn't very nice. It wasn't very nice to get a letter in the post after kind of working for them for 8 or 9 years and get a letter in the post saying we decided not to renew your contract and we just send us the money you owe us for tickets and give us back the computer and the car and the phones and any paperwork you have belonged to us. It was just, it lacked class, and it disappointed me at the time because I done my bit, and I done my bit as a volunteer with Lynn Toohey in the 80s as well, and I just thought it was poor. But anyway, look, I've well gone over that, but I've enjoyed this period, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the time again and working with the international team. And working with those players there.
And now we're delighted to welcome back on the podcast James Rogers. James, how are you?
Yeah, all good, Luke. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Supposedly before we chat with Dundalk, and there's a lot to get into. What have made the league so far after 5 games in?
Yeah, it's been entertaining. Maybe not from a Dundalk perspective, but you look at the way it's set up so far. It's probably exactly what a lot of people were anticipating. We're a bit unpredictable. A lot of teams beating each other. Maybe a little bit of panic set in. With Bowes changing manager and pressure on other clubs. I know Shamrock Rovers obviously had a slow start last year, but the clubs around them have maybe made a little bit of a better start this year. So, and is it easier to make up that sort of gap? I suppose time will tell. But it's certainly nicely poised now, and obviously great to see it doing well in terms of attendances and interest and everything. I think it's probably at a real high in recent years. So long may that continue.
Any player team impression so far you've seen?
I haven't seen Shelbourne yet, but like, you'd be lying if you said, just based on their league position, that they haven't, looked good. That 5 straight wins and undefeated so far. So they're obviously one to catch the eye. I haven't actually seen them in the flesh yet. I will on Friday, but I'd like to look. I've seen a fair bit of Sligo, and they were a sort of team tipped to maybe struggle this year. Obviously did a bit of a number in Dundalk when I saw them on the flesh, but just on account of them playing on a Saturday night, you probably get a chance to see them a little bit more. And impressed by, again, John Russell was probably a manager under a bit of pressure at a stage last year where, he's made them very, very difficult to beat. I watched their game against Shamrock Rovers in the showgrounds and felt they could have got something from the game. So like they've probably been, of the teams I've seen in the flesh, one of the sort of standouts so far. And I think the league table probably reflects that as well. They're probably a little unlucky, if anything, not to have maybe be a little bit further on in terms of the points to have on the board so far.
Yeah, I think Sligo have been fairly decent. I think you're right with Shell. I think Shell's been the outlier so far, and they've done a number on pass there before the international break as well. So we won't talk too much about them. We'll move on to Dundalk. I suppose when we were chatting before the start of the season, we kind of highlighted possibly it could be a struggle this year for Steve O'Donnell and Dundalk, and it's kind of first 5 games kind of shown that what I've made a start of the season, I suppose, in a sentence or two, maybe if you can be nice about it. Yeah,
it's been bad. Let's call a spade a spade. I think, I don't know where it all sort of went wrong. I think the last time I was talking to you was sort of at the start of the season, and Dundalk were heading to Tala for an opening night game where, with all the changes, 11 new signings, and I think 15 went out or something like that, it was one that I didn't have a lot of hope for, particularly the week before Rovers had done a number on Pats in the President's Cup, and yet they put in a really good display, took a point. Probably unlucky not to be 2. Ryan O'Kane, I think, hit the post with a header at 1-0. And if that goes in, maybe you're celebrating a win on the opening night. And after that, it's just sort of been, I don't know, chaotic in terms of, the Galway after that at home lost 2-0, could have been 4 or 5. Sligo followed that, and it was 5. And in those 2 games in particular, given how strong the side's record was at home, were really alarming. To be fair, sort of before the international break, they did give a little bit of a better performance away to Pats, despite losing 1-0. And again, a little bit better again against Waterford, where they drew 0-0 just before the international break. But the big concern is the lack of goals. Like that Jamie Gullen free kick on the opening night is the only goal they've scored this season. They haven't scored from open play at all. It's now 449 minutes and counting in the league. Like, maybe you can't compare the two, but between the last league game, they did play St. Moctus in the Leinster Senior Cup, in which I suppose 7 first team players would have played, and lost 2-0. And again, I was there that night, and it probably could have been 5 or 6 or 7 to St. Moctus, and little of any real notable chances for Dundalk. So the big concern right now is where the goals are going to come from. Even if they have been a bit loose at the back, obviously. They probably did improve that a little in recent games, albeit the goal to give away against Pats wasn't the best either. But even if they can tighten that up, you just do struggle to wonder where the firepower is, because it's not helping either that, you look up to the northwest and Patrick Cuban, who was let go, is leading the goal charts in terms of the league as well. So that'd be just a concern going forward, based on where we are.
Yeah, I think that's a massive problem. Like you highlight there, one goal and it's a set piece as well from a free kick. And that was a great free kick. Don't take that away from him, but like that's majorly concerning. And I suppose the game I did see Dundalk play was that game, Richmond Park, and they did look fairly toothless. Like they had a bit of possession in the game. They did look, to be fair, they did look defensively better, because that was beforehand. They had the horror show against Sligo. But like, what do you think it is, the reason for this? Is it just a lack of quality up top? Is it structure or failure? What do you think from watching the game so far?
Look, it's a bit of it. Like, when you've had the likes of Hoban in your team for so long, you get used to, like, I always said he was nearly worth two players in Dundalk, because people will look at the goals, obviously, but like, no one in a Dundalk jersey got as many assists as him last year. And he just does little things where, I was even reflecting on the Pats game, where the Pats goal basically came from a Chris Forrester hook forward that just basically split the defence. But just before that, Andy Boyle had won a header on the halfway line, and two players went up for the ball, and it kind of broke to Forrester. But I'm making the point, if that's Hoban, he probably holds it up, and that chance never emerges. They've had to adapt to maybe a little bit of a different system. But like, even looking back to it last year, the Dundalk are one of those teams who play with wide players, and they've been really, really struggling for, assists from wide areas. Like, I think Ryan O'Kane got 2 in the league last season, neither of which were, one, he was filed for a penalty, one was a corner away to UCD. Daryl Horgan got, I think, 3 last season when he came back to the club. 2 of them were against Cork in a 5-0 win. Again, one a set piece. Even players who left, like Rayhan Tulloch would have been, there last season, 1 assist. John Martin, 1 assist. Again, a player would have played in a wide area, and like, his 1 assist came on the last day away to UCD. And it was actually a shot that hit the post, came back out and was tapped in. So from wide areas, for a team that plays with wingers, they're struggling to create chances. Obviously, when the team's not scoring, people will look at the strikers, and I'm not saying they're not to blame or whatever, but it's not like they're missing chances either. It just isn't. You could put. I remember reflecting at the Mocktas game. A couple of the Irish squad were at the game, and Adam Ida was one of the players, just ironically standing right in front of me. And I turned around to the guy I was with, saying, like, with a half an hour to go, I said, you could put Ida up top here and it wouldn't make a difference, because it's no good if you can't get the ball to him. And they're just really struggling to create at the moment and unlock teams. And in that regard, you probably couldn't be going somewhere worse than Talca Park on Friday night, because Shells are one of those teams. They don't give up a lot. They've already got the best defensive record in the league this season. I think Rory Gaffney's the only player who scored at Talca this season. So that's a big challenge. And at the moment, Dundalk tend to, if you go back to the start of last season, they've fallen behind in 2/3 of their matches. And when you go behind, you're just wondering, where's 2 goals coming from? Where's even 1 goal coming from? But certainly if you're trying to win a game. And I know all the fans, or certainly most of the fans I spoke to, feel that way, where you're genuinely wondering about that, and you just wonder, has that kind of crept into the dressing room a little bit, where they're wondering where the goals are coming from? Because certainly at the moment, needless to say, you don't win football matches if you don't score goals.
Yeah, and just had the list in front of me there from last season. Top 3 goal scorers: Pat Hoban, Daniel Kelly, and John Martin, who's playing for Shelburne on Friday night. So, like, it's it just seems to haven't replaced the goals going out of the team.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, like, it's early days for the likes of Jamie Gullen, even Kieran McGuckin. He started the last few, but he would have started wide. So you don't want to completely write these guys off as, flops or anything too soon. But like I say, the service needs to be better as well. And I don't know how they, it's not like you look at a Shamrock Rovers who maybe haven't had the best start by their aspirations, but they have someone like a Jack Byrne to come back at some stage who, can add goals and assists. Aaron McAniff will chip in, Richie Towell will chip in. I'm just, just players who haven't been massively involved yet. Dundalk don't really have anyone like that, as far as I can see, to come back in. I know, look, there's a few that haven't really played yet, and that would just be the concern that, you lose your top 3 scorers from last year, and who's picking up the slack at the moment? It's no one.
Do you think O'Donnell should roll the dice and just maybe throw Kenny in, just as an example there, bright young player? I mean, and we'll probably talk his future in a sec, but if that's somewhere you go down now, that avenue, just throwing a young player in, hoping it might work.
He's certainly something different. Look, we're obviously not privy to what happens in training and how people are performing, but there's evidence down through the years of maybe throwing a young lad in and he impresses. Who knows? He definitely offers something a little different in that he's quick over the first few yards and all that. But again, if you're not getting the ball to your strikers, it's nearly irrelevant who's in the number 9. It's not like, it's not like they're missing loads of chances. I mean, you go back to that Pats game, and I think Kieran McGuckin had a shot after about 3 minutes straight at Danny Rogers, and I really thought, what a missed opportunity, because it was Rogers' first game since, I think, October 2022 or something. And, he couldn't ask for an easier night. He wasn't really tested. And listen, maybe he would have been more than equal to it, but just test the goalkeeper in those scenarios. And the Dundalk didn't manage to do that. As you said, a little bit toothless. To be fair, against Waterford, while they didn't find the net, they were trying at least shots from range and stuff like that, which was a little bit of an improvement. But yeah, it just the kind of, if anyone needs a win in the league or a big goal, or maybe it is one of those that goes in off someone's backside and it's an OG or something. But they really need that right now, and maybe it's a bit of luck they need to get it going. Because look, momentum's great when it's going for you, but not that great when it's going against you.
Saw your tweet there today as you're recording Thursday. I think it was 7 years ago to the day where Daryl Horgan and Andy Boyle made their debut for Ireland, and were relieved to just come out the back of the Dundalk fantastic run in Europe. And just last week, Dundalk lose 2-0 to Moxes, as you said. It's some turnaround 7 years to go from the highs of that to losing to a non-league side.
Yeah, look, even I made the point. Even really good Dundalk sides have lost matches they probably shouldn't in the past. Like I remember the team who won the league in '91 under Turlough O'Connor, went out of the cup that season to Ashtown Villa and stuff like that. So bad results can happen. The Mockers result didn't help because it's adding sort of fuel to the fire, because there is a lot of discontent among supporters. And a background to all this is that, there has been upheaval off the field, which is, obviously I think it's caught up now in terms of on the field, but, that's all not help matters, shall we say. And yeah, it's a sad situation. Like, listen, in theory, the Dundalk played 3 games in 7 days if you go Friday to Friday, and in theory you could win the 3 of them and shoot up the league. But it's not a good look to be bottom of the table. Like, it's less than 4 years ago since, I know you're talking about the 2016 run, but it's less than 4 years ago since they were playing the likes of Arsenal and the Emirates and the Europa League group stages. So, this is a club who had 2 Europa League group stage campaigns, regular European football, and there's literally no legacy really, bar memories, and they're wonderful and all, but there's no legacy to show for it. There's not, a brilliant youth academy or a new ground or a new stand or whatever else, a new training facility. And it just seems it's absolutely squandered. And I know people outside of Dundalk won't have much sympathy for the club in that regard, and they're probably right to. But it is a sad situation to see that, those glory years were, because look, results and success and all are cyclical, but even you look to England and clubs like Sunderland, who we would have seen plenty of in terms of documentaries on Netflix, etc., over the years, but they built an incredible stadium, etc., on the back of those Premier League years that they had. And I know it's a different level, but there's a legacy there of those years where we were watching, say, Quinn and Phillips and Roy Keane in the dugout, etc. There's literally nothing for Dundalk, and that's why, Brian Ainscough has come in, and to be fair to him, he's working hard, but, he's almost started with one hand tied behind his back because of the legacy issues there.
Yeah, you mentioned that kind of squandered kind of maybe opportunities and stuff, and I hate to draw parallels with Shamrock Rovers simply because it's a bit different party with the stadium they have is in conjunction with the county council and stuff, but you can draw parallels. Both teams qualified for Europa League, how they progressed since then. Like, is it too simplistic to say the money was blown on players' wages? Like, say, players like Wilfred Sahibo came in, completely failed. Those type of legacy players that came in during that period. Is it just too simplistic to say it's just fully down to player wages, or is there other things that went on? Like, is it peak six mismanagement? Like, what is the kind of the reason for this demise? This is probably the best way to put it.
There's probably too much of it. You don't have long enough on your podcast to go into all that. Look, players obviously did well out of it, and maybe you had to pay more to attract players to a ground. But like, this is where, even and as much as we give out about governments and stuff, when countries are going well, governments will put money away effectively for the rainy day. The sole focus was on maybe the good times on the pitch and not enough on everything that goes along with that, like community work stalled, school work in terms of like getting into your schools in the local area stalled, and maybe there was a complacency there, I don't know, but when you stop doing all those things, when you stop, I go to like probably the two richest clubs in the country at the moment are Rovers and Derry, and just you go to those grounds and like they're doing basic things like halftime draws and golf classics and community nights or whatever it is, and as well as building rapport among the fan base, they also bring in revenue, and that revenue can be used for whatever. And I said, like, I've made the point time and time again, we all would want a new Oriel Park or a new stadium there, or a new, be it a greenfield site or whatever. That's the dream. But it doesn't mean, just because you want a new house, doesn't mean you can't improve your existing one. It doesn't mean you can't build onto it or improve it. Like, things like toilet facilities, etc., would have been criticised over the years in Oriel. Why can't minor projects like that be done to make them better? Why can't, the away section gets regular sort of criticism? It's not the only part of the ground, obviously, that does. But, you look at what, say, Bowes did with the mono stand, and that's probably paid for itself already. And it's just having that, maybe it lacked vision, maybe it lacked work ethic, whatever it was. But, yeah, it's just got to a point now where, you can only put things on the long finger for so long until they have to be dealt with. And it's all sort of come a cropper, because even the messing around with different change of ownerships and that, it led to that situation this year where Stephen, like Dundalk, for 2 years in a row now, Dundalk were the last team in either division to sign a player. So you're sort of scrambling late to sign people. Dara Keane, who hasn't featured yet due to injury, he's the only player to come in from a League of Ireland club, and as a result, you're taking in players from abroad, which is, there's nothing wrong with that in theory, but when you're taking them in from abroad, you don't know them, you haven't seen them week to week, you're gambling to an extent. So it's all those little things. You could probably write a book on it, probably, if you went into the depths of it, but all the little things have sort of added up, and it's not, I don't want to use the term death by a thousand cuts, but it's certainly in that sphere.
But I suppose then you mentioned the pressure from fans, and I suppose when we look on social media post game, you see the criticism O'Donnell gets, and I know social media is kind of the bad barometer to go off sometimes, but it's one we use. Like, is it not then unfair? Like, if you're the manager of a football club, regardless you put in there at the moment, it's going to be a very difficult job, and his track record has shown he's a very good manager. I personally, from a football point of view, I think it'd be wrong to get rid of Steve O'Donnell in this situation. Like, he surely, the club, the fans should stick by him, even if they are struggling at the moment. You mentioned all the issues there. That's not on that man's door. That's not his fault.
Yeah, look, I definitely have sympathy for him from the perspective of, like, he was probably sold a little bit of a pup. Like, he took a big gamble, obviously, to leave Pats on the back of a cup win. And to be fair to him, year one, he upheld his end of the bargain in terms of the team were at one point the nearest challengers to Shamrock Rovers, did finish joint second that year, got European football, and that should have been the point where maybe the club kicks on from there. And, he obviously came in, I think Dundalk had 2 players signed at the time, and, worked wonders to an extent, to get the club back into Europe and after that, on that basis. But I mean, after that, yeah, look, off-field things haven't helped him. There's been an instability behind the scenes. But equally, you can't, some of the records in terms of on the pitch stuff, you'd have to ask, should it be improved as well? So, like, for example, Dundalk have won 3 games in Dublin under his watch. And obviously, up until this year, there's been 5 clubs the last 2 seasons in Dublin. 2 of those 3 wins were against UCD. The other was against Bows, which was won by an own goal in 2022. They've taken, like last year, they took 2 points against teams above them in the table. They've fallen behind, as I say, in 2/3 of matches. And really, really struggled for goals, particularly away from home. Less so at home. The home form has been the saving grace. But, and I don't mean to be massively critical, but, like, you're looking over an extended period of time here where they're not, flattering stats. And he doesn't look to have been able to solve them. Like last year, it was almost a running joke. I think 23 times Dundalk went behind in the league last season. Like, it's far too many. Now, yeah, they came back at times and won, but you're giving yourself an absolute mountain of to climb every time when you're doing that. And even the likes of, we go back to that. I go back to that Pats game, and too many goals are like that. They're just undone far too easily, like a ball through the middle, and all of a sudden a team is in on you, and that comes down to coaching. So I'm not saying Dundalk should pull the trigger or whatever, but what I will say is fans are sort of within the right to sort of question why these stats and why these little things, like, when you keep conceding the same type of goal, when you're struggling to create, as I say, particularly away from home, when you're struggling to win away from home or take points against teams above you in the league, because the Dundalk were right in the mix for Europe last season up until the final day, and ultimately, you turn one draw or one defeat away from home, and you're in Europe right now. It's a massive different complexion, but he hasn't been able to address that, and that's the sort of frustrating thing from a fan perspective, that isn't helping him. And then there's been those few occasions, like the 4-0 cup defeat to Galway last September, like the 5-0 defeat to Sligo at home this month, where, every, like, coaches can have a bad night but there's been sort of too many of them, and they're building up. And as a result, I think it might sound unfair to an outsider, but I think he's very much on trial this weekend, where there is those 3 matches, and he probably needs 4 points to survive.
So it's more of a case of an inevitability maybe around Steve O'Donnell's future, only heading one way.
Well, look, we don't know in terms of, look, it's a new owner in, and we don't know how patient or impatient he is. If you looked at another club with, the likes of Gareth Callagher's there a long time, and you can say he gives managers chances or whatever, but we don't know how sort of patient or trigger happy to another extent Brian Ainscough is. But I was saying to you off air, I don't see a situation where he can lose the Loud Derby on Monday, regardless of what happens in Talca Park on Friday. I don't think he can lose that Loud Derby on Monday and expect to still be in the job after it. And that's might sound cruel. I'm just being realist about it, because I think it's looking at the moment like you need to finish ahead of Drogheda probably if you want to avoid direct relegation. So I don't think you can lose that game.
What's the mood among the fans around the, say, new ownership and was a new investment come in there 2 weeks ago as well? Like, what's the mood currently around the new ownership at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's been probably the silver lining, a bit of real light. And to be fair to Brian Ainscough, anything he said he'd do so far, he's done. He hasn't promised sun, moon and stars. He's brought in a new CEO in Peter Halpin, who is from the town and would have been there in the past. I think he's been a popular appointment. It's still very early days for him. I don't even think he's in the role a month. But yeah, like, they're making strides. As you mentioned, there was new investment come in. I believe there'll be more next month to come, and that's all positive. They're coming up with various initiatives. They've even, like I mentioned, falling behind on different things in the community already. The players and etc. being back out in local schools and doing all that good work. They've appointed people off the field to sort of help with the, improving things within the community and that. So it's a slow process and it's very early days, but I think it's going in the right direction. Definitely, I think the on the pitch stuff now needs to follow.
You kind of mentioned Easter week, and as a chat before we finish up, like the 3 games coming up, is it 3 points the minimum? You already mentioned already, but it's 3 points the bare minimum they need from this week now to really get the season going?
Yeah, I think so. Look, ordinarily there's no shame going away to Shells and away to Derry, which are the 2 Friday matches, and not winning. There'll be many clubs who'll do that this season, and particularly Shells are flying at the moment. I do think it all comes down to that Loud Derby where, there's a lot of fans, I think, have given up on this management team. It is very, very hard to turn that around when that happens. And in that scenario, I think if you lose to Drogheda on Monday, and it's 1:00 kickoff, it's a funny time in terms of, getting people up for it or whatever. But I think if you don't, maybe not don't lose it, but if you don't, don't win it, but if you lose that game, I think it's very, whatever sort of thin level of support is there at the moment, just evaporates altogether. I think that's the crucial game for me in all this. That I think if they're going to get a win, it has to be against Drogheda. Obviously, bonuses if you can beat Shells, beat Derry. I'm not writing those games off, but they're not the games you're sort of expected to win. I think the Dundalks, you look through Stephen O'Donnell's previous couple of seasons at the club, I think he only lost 3 matches in Oriel Park. Won the Pats the first year, might have been a couple, maybe 2 or 3 max last year. They've already lost 2 this year. If you make it 3 to your local rivals, to a team, again, with all due respect to Drogheda, who purely because of their part-time nature expected to be down there, that's very worrying even at this early stage.
How confident are you to take points in the game?
Look, it's hard to know. It's. I think you have to look at Friday first, and hypothetically, if you go to Talca and win, you're bouncing into that match. You go to Talca and take a heavy defeat or something, you're probably not. I think you have to look at Friday first. But I even noticed that like the Waterford game last time out, the very nervous atmosphere. Waterford didn't have a lot of chances, but did a few good ones, and every time they were sort of on the attack, that you could feel the nervousness in the air in Oriel Park, where it's almost like the fans are expecting the sucker punch at this stage, and it's up to the management and players to turn that around, because fans are right to be concerned in terms of when your team's bottom and not playing well, but only one group of people can change that, and it's within. They've had maybe the international break didn't come at a good time for the likes of Shells, because they were absolutely flying, and maybe it did for Dundalk, where you can go away and reset a little bit, work on things and try and iron out some of the kinks. It is still a largely new group, as I say, 11 new players come in, so that's a big change and big turnover. But the longer that sort of win or wait for a win goes on, it just drags you down that little bit more, I think.
So an early goal is needed on Monday night in Oriel Park.
By all means, yeah. I think, look, well, to get a win, you have to score. So I think it's just been that long now since there was a goal. Like, I mean, I probably too soon to talk about it, but obviously one of the big talk points next Friday will be Patrick Hoban maybe up against his old club again. Like, he's still the last player to score from the Dundalk from open play. So that kind of sums it all up, So yeah, look, they need a goal and they need a boost, and they need, as much as they'll say confidence hasn't been hit, you wouldn't be human if you're losing 3 or 5 matches and heavily in some cases that that wasn't affecting your confidence coming in. So they need that sort of boost, but it's not an easy run of games to get it in, because even the Louth derby, that doesn't matter where both teams are. That's being a local derby, takes on a life of itself on Monday as well.
James, thanks for coming on again. We'll chat again soon.
No worries. Cheers, Luke.
And before we wrap up this week's episode, a quick run through the fixtures in the SSE Electricity League, starting with the Premier Division. Bohemians travel to Tala to take on Shamrock Rovers in the Dublin Derby. Derry, Galway, Waterford, Sligo, Drogheda United, St. Pat's, and Shelbourne, Dundalk, all on Friday night. On Easter Monday, we also have fixtures in the Premier Division, starting with Dundalk, Drogheda and the Louth Derby, big game there. Waterford, Shamrock Rovers, Shelbourne, Derry, St. Patrick's, Sligo, and Galway United against Bows. In the First Division, we have on Friday night, Bray, Cove Ramblers, Longford Town, UCD, Cork City, Athlone, Kerry, Wexford, and Treaty United, Finn Harps, all on Friday. The Monday night games are as follows: Cove Ramblers, Longford, Wexford, Cork, Athlone Town, Treaty United, Finn Harps, Bray, and UCD, Kerry. And finally, in the Women's Premier Division, we have Bows, Cork City, Shamrock Rovers, Treaty United, Peamount, Wexford Youths, Sligo Rovers, Galway, and Athlone Town, Shelbourne, all on Saturday. I want to thank James Roger for coming this week. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll chat to you all next week.